Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast. We are here to deliver to you a story steaming hot and fresh out of the oven. I am, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to recap a story. Well, guys, we did it again. We made it through. We're in another recap episode.
We made it through the wilderness.
Yep.
We made it through.
So this is the recap episode for our sequel to The Gods Are Everywhere.
Or The Gods Are Here.
Right, The Gods Are Here.
The Gods Are Everywhere, yeah.
I think we have another story called The Gods Are Everywhere. And that's just on me for getting those confused.
I really love the whole notion, the gods, there's these, and it's a great, this story, well, actually a 6-part story if you count the sequel.
Right.
It begs the question, of origins, right?
Right.
It literally a super advanced race, so to speak, and it turns out to be like a faction of this super advanced multi-galactic race that go around the galaxies, and inhabiting planets and doing their thing. And in our particular story, these 10 statues, which are statues of the original gods, so to speak, which had, seeded the planet, the Earth-like planet with human-like people, and then gave them of their essence so that they were, became advanced, beyond the animals or whatever. Who made the gods?
Right.
It's just I just love the concept of, people who have the whole argument, of creationist versus, in the beginning God or in the beginning gas, and
right.
What all right. That is was formed from a big bang and it's just swirling gases and whatnot. And it's all random and it's just took so that it takes billions of years to do it, of course, because you have to, in order to have enough random events to coalesce into living beings and then take those living beings to become sentient and all of that, so then they just drop the argument altogether and just go like, well, it was ancient aliens that came and made life on this planet, and it's
a real thought that is connected with the Anunnaki kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just wonder how far back we'd need to go in history. If I were to bring a cell phone to them, would they say that I am either a god or a prophet of the gods?
Yeah, right.
It's not that far back.
Right.
It's back before we understood. First, it would be before we understood electricity, I think.
Yes.
And
you have your 9mm boom boom stick, on your side, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, guns have been around for a while, so you'd have to go back, past cannons in order for that to be a thing.
Yeah.
But it's really easy. I love the conversation of an alien creature starts a race of people to accomplish something. And those people just kind of automatically move into worship.
Right.
Because in essence, that is essentially what we believe. I'm saying we as in a Christian is reality was created by an intellect of infinite size. And because of that, all of humanity seeks to worship something. In my opinion, a lot of them are lost in knowing what's the right thing to worship, but everyone seeks to worship something. I just think that's
something that has to be bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
Be it an entity or an idea.
Right. Something so they can get they can get the answer. I don't think people are satisfied. I don't even think atheists are satisfied with evolution or Big Bang Theory.
Right.
Because it doesn't actually answer that question.
Of course not.
It makes it easier to discount, some a being like God.
Yeah.
Or
the answer, my friend, blowing in the wind. Even Dylan had his Slow Train Coming album where he says you got to serve somebody. It might be the devil or it might be the Lord, but you got to serve somebody.
Right. Okay. Should we get around to this these episodes? I have a confession to make.
Go ahead, my son.
Here I am.
In what way did you break the most sacred of all the commandments?
I did not give any of my characters names in the story.
Oh, that's not so bad.
I didn't give them any names. we didn't actually decide who anyone was. I liked this story a lot. But I feel like I did a great disservice to the kind of fleshing out that really needs to happen. It's like, if we're gonna talk about the same story for 3 or 4, however many episodes, we really gotta. I'm looking over right now, and Reed's got all of his notes, and it's like, I really need to start taking. That's my plan, either in the new year or literally next week, is to start taking notes and to start trying my best to keep track of the story instead of waiting till the recap to be reminded. I don't know about you guys, but
I think in these ones, now correct me if I'm wrong, I know I came up with a new character and so did Reed, and we both gave them names.
Yeah, I just listened. See,
Most of the other
missed last week.
characters carried over from the one before. Like, I think Haggai came over from the one before.
Yeah.
I don't know what other characters we created, though.
Okay, so I'm not talking about this episode. I'm talking about a general lack of continuity in my own mind. I really felt it this episode. There were a lot of little points I remember wanting to cover, and then I just couldn't remember them because I didn't have notes. So I'm just telling my listeners and telling you guys, I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna make some notes. Maybe we'll make those available. Get Reed to write up his notes. His notes look very good. Make those notes available so that people can read our notes about what we think about the story. I like this one a lot. I've been reading the Stormlight Archive, Way of Kings, and then the Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
And I read Warbreaker, and it's very good. It's different as far as fantasy goes. It's closer to Wheel of Time, but it's even more modern than Wheel of Time is as far as fantasy goes.
Yeah.
But it had a lot of similar themes, and there was a lot of similar action themes. I liked the whole gods. I liked the whole unique artifact with the crystals. I like the fighting style. I really enjoy a post-apocalyptic sci-fi world that has turned fantasy.
Yeah.
That's a thing that I really enjoy.
And I also thought, we've talked about this before, but some of our stories, we need to go back and kind of book together these sci-fi fantasy stories that are on different worlds and different universes, but they are connected to the same ultimate universe, so to speak.
Right.
And of course I got recurring character, and Seth not in the sequel, but the gods are here. What the sequel was a sequel of. Seth came up with the orthodoxy kind of with the religion of the future, so to speak, and then the fighting style that it brought the gemstones in and all that, and then I brought this. Landon was a character from Sci-Fi Chakra from last spring or something. He was a wise old man in a previous story. And then, I noticed that you guys forgot that Laura was the name of the wise old woman.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. But Sebastian, I really like Sebastian and kind of a scholar class, and studying the prophecies. And he's kind of getting to the bottom of this whole thing as one of the creation, one of the beings that have been created. He has gathered together enough of the essence and enough of the at one point we talked about he had a DNA compilation such that he had the ability to make use of the essence of the gods in a way that was maybe more potent than others, and then he developed the college of that really began to break down and understand what the old gods really were and get control of this mess.
Yeah.
Sebastian is Haggai and Sebastian were two really good characters.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think, we always talk about this, and maybe that is because I think last year we did a short story challenge thing at the turn of the new year. And perhaps this year what we need to do is challenge to go back through and listen and categorize everything we've done.
Absolutely. I think that'd be a really good thing to do, and maybe even work on some kind of flow chart / Google sheet that has all this as we're working on it, or once it's all set up, so that we can continue to add to it as well. Maybe
Right.
once I'm thinking that next year I want to go back through and listen to all of the episodes over again.
Yeah.
And make notes about them and then start deciding, okay, all these episodes are in the same universe.
Right.
So these are all stories in the same universe. Okay, all these episodes are, sort of thing. That's I think that's what my writing project for next year is going to be.
I read a series. It might have been 8 or 9, but I don't think I even finished it because when I stopped reading the series, the guy was still cranking more of them out. But it was like Cast Under an Alien Sun or something.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah, and what it was the premise was basically that there was a race of beings that was keeping close monitor on the Earth and the development, and they had cloaked surveillance drone ships in orbit around the Earth, and they were watching the development through the Napoleonic times where the use of gunpowder and sailing ships and whatnot. And anyway, and then in more modern times, it got more complicated as they started putting up satellites, and so it became more complicated because they had to be doing kind of air traffic control and dodging whatnot, and they made a mistake and actually had a drone collision with an airliner, and they had a command ship in orbit, and were able to grab these people that were blasted out into the atmosphere and were certainly going to die, and they didn't want to they didn't want to kill somebody, so they just gathered them, and then they patched these people up, and then they just kind of dropped them naked on this other planet that was in basically 17th century development. And here there were 21st century people with knowledge dropped in, and they started impacting this civilization. It was really a cool story. And I went through 8 books. Anyway, at some point I'm going to have to see what happens with the continuation of it, because it has just great potential. But I imagine some of our stories where we would have somebody, from this world, for example, find themselves on one of our other world stories and kind of see how they fit in and stuff.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to start creating kind of either universes, and if everything can be connected, obviously that's cool, but universes and then things within universes, and start to the alien race in this story, this planet was like a prepper bunker for them to survive a war. Yeah. It's what war was that? Was that the war that those weird clones were made by an alien race in one of our other stories?
Yeah.
And a different alien race did something different and made those weird clones to mine some substance.
Yeah.
Is it that world? So anyways, I think that's probably going to be my writing.
Yeah. I can see a story about the 11th God, who is he's like a super galactic law enforcement guy, that he knows this was kind of a fringe group that took off and set up shop here on this planet, and he comes and he finds out these gods are these beings had created a race, and they had become kind of their gods, and this is kind of ethically kind of frowned on anymore, and so he comes as the 11th God here to try to and then he gets cast, of course, as the evil one, introducing all kinds of bad intent, but really he's just seeking to uncover the plots of the original 10, I don't know. I just,
that's interesting. I never viewed him as a cop, a law enforcement. I viewed him kind of as kind of a bounty hunter.
Okay. Yeah. That would fit better.
Who just he's kind of an outcast even within his own people, because he sort of spies and is kind of a bounty. So it's interesting. Even within our own story, you thought of him differently than I did.
Yep.
Space cop.
Yeah. Space bounty hunter.
Boba Fett. No, wait.
Yeah. Let me see. Anything else interesting about the story that you guys noticed or thought was interesting?
Nothing was capitalized.
Yeah, so little capitalization. I loved your thing, Seth, at the end with the Sebastian like using the siphon knife and then it kind of like turning into ultimate power and then power sort of being returned back.
Right. With the obvious, the kind of the disillusion of it. I mean, because it's diluted out, it's spread among everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if I got to it in there, but it just kind of popped in my head, like the knife turning into more of like a remote. And then you have other things that are also like remotes. So then basically, not that, I mean, a lot of people would start having more of these powers, but then some people would end up with these remotes that could basically, turn on and off or do all kinds of stuff. But.
Yeah, absolutely. But it made me think of, I mentioned it then, but so my inspirations for this story, both the first one and the second one, as far as fiction books I've read, has been Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, then The Lightbringer, obviously, and by Brent Weeks, and then what was the other one? Mr. Norrell and Jonathan Strange, which I don't know if there was a book about that or if it was first. Yes, it was a book. See, this is my own. I watched the TV show first. Susanna Clark, 2004. Published, it's an alternate history set in the 19th century England around the time of the Napoleonic War. It's very good. I'm gonna read the book and then I will know more. So, any inspirations you guys had from books you've read?
I guess some of it was just what you already mentioned when I brought up the knife was kind of Lightbringer kind of thing. But
cool, excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. This recap episode where we talk about what we did good, what we didn't do good, and what our plans are to do good in the future. If you have any questions about our process or what we do, or you want to suggest cool ideas, you can reach us anytime, day or night, at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com or on Twitter at @getsbettercast. I'm, of course, Levi. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to wait, because it does get better.